So, welcome to the deep dive. We're picking up right after that sermon from Pastor Florin.
Yeah, the one on the Son of Mary, part of that Roles of Jesus series.
Exactly. And what really jumped out, at least for me, was this whole idea of what it means to, learn from someone, really follow them.
The apprenticeship angle.
Right. The sermon used that phrase, the carpenter's apprentice, drawing from those Luke passages, Mary's story.
Luke 1 and 2, yeah.
And it wasn't just about, okay, here's what happened historically. It was about the how-to. How do you actually do that? How do you learn by doing, especially from someone like Jesus? That practice part feels key.
Absolutely. Pastor Soren really dug into that. It wasn't just a history lesson, like you said. It was pulling out these deep insights about God's character, sure, but also really practical stuff for us today.
Yeah.
And Mary's story.
Well, it's a powerful way into understanding that whole apprenticeship idea.
Mhm.
It's way more than just believing something. It's about how you engage, how you live it out. Okay, so let's get into it. The sermon started with that amazing scene, right? Mary visiting Elizabeth.
Yeah, her relative.
And the description is just so vivid, this immediate, palpable joy. Elizabeth's baby John leaping and Elizabeth getting filled with the Holy Spirit. It's intense.
It really is. And what always strikes me there is Elizabeth's reaction. I mean, she's the elder. She's further along in her pregnancy.
Right.
But she humbles herself instantly before Mary, this younger woman, saying, why am I so favored that the mother of my Lord should come to me?
Wow.
That says so much, doesn't it, about Elizabeth's insight, her humility, recognizing something huge was happening, even if it didn't fit the usual, hierarchy or expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have Mary's response, her song, the Magnificat.
Mm-hmm.
Pastor Florin pointed out, it's basically woven together from scriptures she clearly knew inside out.
Yeah, she had them in her heart.
And you feel that mix, right?
Mm.
Just pure joy, but also this profound humility. My soul glorifies the Lord. It's powerful.
It is. And that song, it tells you so much about her. Her joy, obviously.
Yeah.
Her humility, she calls herself God's humble servant.
Yeah.
There's an honesty there, too. Like, she knows this incredible thing happening to her isn't because she earned it, but because of grace.
Right.
And then through her words, you get this picture of God's character, his mercy, his power, how he lifts up the humble and fills the hungry, his faithfulness to promises. It's like a whole theology packed into her personal response.
Okay, so that sets the stage. Then the sermon shifted into the applications of joy. I thought this was really interesting. This idea that God is at work in the details of our humanity. Like, it doesn't matter if you're young like Mary or old like Elizabeth.
Yeah, age isn't a barrier.
Or even how much faith you start with. He contrasted Zechariah, Elizabeth's husband, who doubted, asking, how can I be sure, versus Mary. Her question, how will this be, was in doubt.
No, it was practical. Like, okay, I love you, but how's this going to work?
Exactly. It's about method, not disbelief. A really subtle but important difference in how we approach things we don't understand.
For sure. And that leads right into the actions of joy that Pastor Florin laid out, those 3 key things.
Okay, yeah. What were they again?
First, it's okay to wonder, wonder how God's promises or maybe just challenging situations in your life will actually play out, trusting there's a process.
Right, like Mary's how.
Exactly. Second, speak out. Speak the truth. The scriptures, your convictions, just like Mary did in her song.
Okay.
And third, and this is where it really connects to our whole apprenticeship idea, humble yourself.
Yes, that one really landed. Because the sermon pointed out that Jesus himself, God becoming human, was this ultimate act of humility.
That ultimate example, yeah.
So if he did that, what does it mean for us as his apprentices to be called to humble ourselves? Especially that phrase Pastor Florin used, stepping into roles and situations that are beneath us.
That's the kicker, isn't it?
Yeah, because, how do you do that today? In a world that's all about climbing the ladder, getting noticed, building your brand, how do you step into something beneath you without feeling, I don't know, like you're losing ground or giving up on your goals?
That is the tension, especially I think for young people starting out, trying to navigate careers in life. It's a really practical question.
Oh, yeah.
And linking it directly to apprenticeship is key. An apprentice learns by doing what the master does, right? They watch, they imitate, they practice.
Okay.
So if the master, Jesus, demonstrated this radical humility by becoming human, living a simple life, serving others, well, that's not just theology, that's the practice for the apprentice.
So humbling yourself isn't just a state of mind, it's an action, a practice.
Exactly. It's presented as a crucial practice, a deliberate way of engaging with the world that pushes back against that constant pressure for status and, outward success. It's about choosing to learn and serve, even when the task isn't glamorous or doesn't immediately boost your resume.
Okay, so let's make this really practical.
Yeah.
Because that's the need, right? Young people are trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
You're ambitious, you want to succeed, make a difference. But then there's this call to humility, to maybe take roles that don't look like success on paper. How is that empowering, not limiting?
Well, the Suman suggested it reframes what success even means. It's not about ditching ambition altogether or letting people walk all over you.
Right, not being a doormat.
Exactly. It's about the spirit you bring to things. Think about Mary again. Her humility didn't sideline her. It positioned her for this, world-changing role. She wasn't chasing the spotlight,
No?
but her willingness, her humble yes, put her right at the center of everything.
So the practice of humility, as an apprentice, it's about prioritizing different things.
Yeah, prioritizing things like service, like learning the fundamentals, like building character over just, ego boosts or titles.
So what could that look like day to day for someone maybe just starting their career or still studying?
Okay, good question. It could mean maybe taking that internship where, yeah, you're doing a lot of the less glamorous tasks, the grunt work.
Stuff nobody posts on Instagram.
Exactly. But you're learning how things really work from the ground up. You're building resilience, understanding the process. That's foundational.
Okay. What else?
Or maybe it's volunteering for that task on a team project that nobody wants, but it needs doing for everyone to succeed. That shows reliability, teamwork.
Mm-hmm.
It could be about being willing to learn from anyone, not being too proud to ask questions or learn a skill from someone who maybe has less seniority but knows something you don't.
Yeah, dropping the ego a bit.
Right. Or focusing on helping your colleagues succeed, building those relationships, rather than just constantly trying to outshine everyone for individual credit.
That builds a different kind of reputation.
It absolutely does. It's about choosing tasks or roles, not just for how they look now, but for the growth they offer, the service they provide, the character they build. It's building something solid, inside out, not just a shiny exterior. You develop things like patience, adaptability, real leadership skills that come from serving, not just directing.
So this whole apprenticeship idea,
Yeah,
it really does offer a different way to look at success, doesn't it?
totally.
It's less about the immediate wins, the titles, the salary right now, and more about building that foundation of character, that servant heart.
Yes. And the suggestion is that kind of foundation often leads to a more meaningful, maybe even more impactful life in the long run, perhaps in ways you didn't even plan for.
Because you've developed something real, something valuable beyond just the job description. And it sounds like it's ongoing, right? Not a one-off decision.
Oh, definitely a continuous practice. You never really graduate from learning humility.
So wrapping this up then, the big takeaway seems to be that following Jesus, or any profound example really, isn't just mental agreement. It's not just saying I believe. No, it's about the practice. Actively trying to live the way they lived. And starting, maybe surprisingly, with this deep, practical humility.
Like Mary. She didn't just believe the angel. She acted, she traveled, she sang, she engaged with it all. That's the apprenticeship in action.
So the practice comes first, or at least hand in hand with belief.
And that brings us to a question for you, the listener, to maybe chew on this week. If embracing humility as an apprentice learning this way means being willing to step into roles or situations that the world might see as beneath you,
Yeah.
how might that radically redefine what real success or purpose looks like in your life right now?
Ooh, that's a good one to sit with. A different measure of success entirely.
Definitely food for thought.
Well, thank you for digging into that with me, and thanks to you for joining us on this deep dive. Hopefully that gives you something practical to think about this week.